Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into complex topics and try to extract some surprising insights.
That's the goal.
Today, we're focusing on one of history's most iconic and, frankly, misunderstood figures, Cleopatra VII Thea Philopator.
Ah, Cleopatra. Yeah, when you think of her, often the first image that comes to mind is, the ultimate seductress.
Right.
A queen of just incomparable beauty who captivated Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. That's kind of the story we've all been told for centuries.
Man, it's such a powerful image, isn't it? The movies, the plays, the lore,
Yeah,
they all paint this really vivid picture.
definitely.
But what if that's just one facet of a much richer, more complex story waiting to be uncovered? Our sources for this deep dive, we've got a detailed Wikipedia entry, a biography from Live Science, and even a fascinating Reddit discussion among historians.
Yeah.
They all suggest that while, romantic entanglement certainly played a role,
A big role, undeniably.
Cleopatra was, first and foremost, an incredibly intelligent, multilingual, and really astute political operator.
Yeah, the historical records, when you look closely, consistently reveal a woman whose strategic brilliance was arguably her most compelling trait, maybe far more so than any, legendary beauty.
So our mission today is to go beyond the myth.
Let's do it.
Using these sources, we'll try to reveal the true depth of her reign, her sharp strategic mind, and the honestly astonishing impact she had on her world.
Yeah, how she navigated these treacherous political waters.
Exactly. Defied expectations and ultimately left a legacy that still intrigues us millennia later. Okay, let's unpack this, maybe starting with her fascinating roots.
Sounds good. She wasn't exactly Egyptian, was she?
No, that's the key thing. Cleopatra was a Hellenistic ruler in an Egyptian land. To understand that, you need to know she belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty.
Right, Greek Macedonians.
Exactly. A line of Greek-speaking, Greek-cultured monarchs who ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great's conquests. Her direct lineage traces back to Ptolemaic, one of Alexander's most trusted generals.
And these Ptolemies, they sort of famously kept themselves separate, culturally speaking. They typically refused to learn the native Egyptian language, maintaining their Greek identity very strongly.
But this is where Cleopatra immediately stands out, isn't it?
Hugely. She was the only Ptolemaic ruler known to have actually bothered learning Egyptian.
Wow.
But that's just the start of her linguistic, impressive skill set. Alongside Koine Greek, her native tongue.
Which is the common Greek of the time.
Right. She could also speak Ethiopian, Hebrew, or maybe Aramaic, Arabic, Assyrian language, which is probably Syriac, Median, Parthian, and seemingly even Latin.
That's an astonishing range. It sounds like much more than just a personal skill. Like, it had to be a political tool.
Absolutely. This wasn't just, a party trick. It was her ultimate diplomatic weapon. Imagine being able to negotiate directly.
No interpreters.
Exactly. With a dozen different rulers, building trust firsthand, it gave her this unparalleled strategic advantage in a really fragmented world. And it reflected her ambition, definitely, to not just rule, but to rebuild a powerful Hellenistic empire, maybe restore some of those former Ptolemaic territories.
So she was born in 69 BC, and she inherited a truly troubled kingdom.
Yeah, her father, Ptolemy XII, had leaned so heavily on Rome that Egypt was burdened with just staggering debt.
To Roman financiers, right?
Yeah, bankers like Gaius Rabirius Postumus. And this, combined with constant internal political strife, created an incredibly unstable environment for her from, day one.
And this instability didn't just simmer, did it? It exploded into an early power struggle.
It really did. Her father was actually exiled around 58 BC.
Kicked out.
Yeah, and her elder sister, Berenice IV, seized the throne. But then, with significant Roman military support, Rome gets involved.
Always.
Ptolemy XII was restored just a few years later in 55 BC. And it's worth noting here, a young cavalry officer named Mark Antony was part of this Roman expedition. Ah, the first connection.
He would later claim he fell in love with a 14-year-old Cleopatra right then and there. Whether that's true or later embellishment, who knows?
Interesting. So the seeds for these future entanglements were sown incredibly early.
Definitely.
When her father died around 51 BC, Cleopatra, then only about 17 or 18, was designated joint heir with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII.
Just a kid himself.
Yeah, and one of her first acts as queen was pretty symbolic, so she installed a sacred Boucher's bowl.
Which was a very public gesture, right? Engaging with Egyptian religion.
Exactly. A clear sign she intended to rule as an Egyptian pharaoh, not just some distant Greek monarch.
But she inherited a kingdom just teetering on the brink. There was a devastating famine because of a low Nile flood.
Which was life or death in Egypt.
Totally. And the Gabiniani, this rogue Roman garrison left behind earlier, was essentially running wild, creating lawlessness, plus that enormous inherited debt to the Roman Republic.
It's piling up.
Yeah.
And the family drama didn't ease up either. By the summer of 51 BC, Cleopatra asserted sole rule, pushing her brother aside.
Yeah, effectively. The Ptolemies had this long-standing, if often criticized by contemporary Greeks, practice of sibling marriage to keep power in the family.
Right. Keep the bloodline pure, supposedly.
But Ptolemy III, her brother, he had powerful allies. His eunuch regent, Pothinus, the military commander, Achilles, his tutor, Theodotus.
A whole court faction against her.
Right. They pushed back hard, forcing Cleopatra to flee Alexandria. She ends up gathering an invasion force in Roman Syria with her younger sister, Arsinoe IV.
So she's already in exile, fighting to get back in.
Yeah, this desperate fight for her throne brings us directly to her pivotal connection with Julius Caesar.
The big one.
He arrived in Egypt in 48 BC, hot on the heels of his great rival Pompey after the Battle of Pharsalus.
Right. Pompey's fleeing, looking for refuge in Egypt.
And instead finds ultimate betrayal.
Yeah, Ptolemy III's advisors, guys like Pothinus, they were desperate to avoid getting entangled in Rome's civil war, so they had Pompey assassinated.
Just like that.
And they presented his severed, embalmed head to Caesar, probably expecting gratitude.
Problem solved for you, Caesar.
Exactly. Instead, Caesar expressed genuine outrage and grief, or at least that's how it's reported. Very dramatic.
Definitely not the reaction they were aiming for. Caesar then takes up residence in the royal palace and demands that Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII disband their forces and reconcile.
Trying to impose order.
And here's where the legend truly kicks into high gear. The accounts differ on how Cleopatra actually entered the palace to meet him.
Right, the famous story.
Some say she dressed alluringly and simply charmed her way in. But the Roman historian Plutarch, he famously describes her being smuggled inside.
In a rug. Or a bed sack.
Yeah, a bed sack or even a carpet by her loyal freedman, Apollodorus.
I mean, whether it was a carpet or not, that kind of daring entrance certainly shows her audacity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And when Ptolemy XIII realized Cleopatra was inside, with Caesar...
He lost it.
Yeah, he incited a riot right there in the palace. But Caesar, with his incredible, presence and oratorical skills, managed to calm the frenzied crowd.
He then apparently revealed Ptolemy XII's will, confirming the joint rule for Cleopatra and Ptolemy III. And he even tried to sort of smooth things over by setting up Arsinoe IV and another younger brother, Ptolemy IV, as rulers of Cyprus.
Trying to give everyone a piece of the pie. But this arrangement, however, absolutely enraged Ptolemy III's advisors.
They saw it as Caesar blatantly favoring Cleopatra.
Totally. So they responded by attacking Caesar and Cleopatra with a massive force, like 20,000 troops.
Including those Gabiniani soldiers.
Right, trapping them in the royal palace.
Which, raises an important strategic question. How did a relatively small Roman force, maybe only a few thousand soldiers...
Surrounded.
Yeah, how did they survive such an intense siege against a much larger entrenched local army? It seems Caesar's brilliant tactical positioning within the palace complex and, crucially, the eventual arrival of desperately needed Roman reinforcements that proved key to their survival.
And reinforcements did arrive, didn't they?
Yeah.
Leading to what became known as the Alexandrian War.
Yeah, Ptolemy III ultimately died in the fighting, drowned while fleeing, apparently.
And Arsinoe IV.
She was captured and later exiled, famously paraded in Caesar's triumph back in Rome. Humiliated.
So Caesar wins.
Yeah.
But he's still wary, it seems, of a sole female ruler.
Right, Roman sensibilities and all that. So he appointed Cleopatra's younger brother, the 12-year-old Ptolemy IV, as nominal co-ruler with the now 22-year-old Cleopatra.
A figurehead, basically.
Pretty much. Though Cleopatra continued living privately with Caesar, and Cyprus was also returned to her control, which really solidified her power base.
And during this incredibly intense period, the siege, the war, Cleopatra became pregnant.
Yes, her son, Caesarion, was born in 47 BC, and Cleopatra publicly declared Caesar the father.
Which was a huge claim.
Massive. Though Caesar himself remained publicly silent, likely for profound political reasons. He was married to Calpurnia back in Rome.
And Roman laws were very strict about illegitimate or foreign heirs.
Exactly. Nevertheless, the Alexandrians, apparently seeing the resemblance, nicknamed the child Caesarion, Little Caesar.
Later, Cleopatra and her young brother husband, Ptolemy IV, visited Rome. That must have been something. Late 46 BC.
Staying in Caesar's own villa outside the city.
Caesar granted them the coveted status of friend and ally of Rome. And one of Cleopatra's court members, Sosigenes of Alexandria, even helped Caesar with the famous Julian calendar reforms.
Shows the intellectual exchange happening, too.
But here's a detail that truly makes you pause. Caesar dedicated a gilded statue of Cleopatra
In gold.
in his brand new Temple of Venus Genetrix in Rome.
That wasn't just an honor. It was linking her directly to Isis, the Egyptian goddess, and Venus, the Roman goddess of love, and crucially, Caesar's supposed ancestral deity.
So he's tying her into his own family's divine ancestry, implicitly. What a bold move.
Extremely bold. And Roman contemporaries, like Cicero, were absolutely appalled. They found Cleopatra arrogant anyway, and this statue, well, it just fueled their contempt. A foreign queen in a Roman temple next to a goddess. Unheard of.
Yeah, you could see why they'd be upset. That statue was maybe a masterstroke of propaganda on Caesar's part, integrating her into his narrative.
Elevating her status, for sure.
But also, as you said, a direct affront to deeply held Roman sensibilities about foreign queens and divine honors in their sacred spaces.
A real double-edged sword.
And then just a few months later, March 44 BC, Caesar is assassinated.
The Ides of March. Chaos.
Imagine that moment, the entire Roman world thrown into chaos, and Cleopatra, this foreign queen, is right there in the heart of it all.
What must have been going through her mind as all Caesar's plans just unraveled?
She stayed in Rome briefly, apparently clinging to the hope that Caesarion would be recognized as Caesar's heir.
But his will named his grandnephew Octavian instead.
Right, so she returned to Egypt. And then, just a few months after that, maybe sensing weakness or opportunity, she allegedly had Ptolemy IV, her brother, killed, poisoned,
clearing the way,
and swiftly elevating her son, Caesarion, as her official co-ruler. Now she's ruling with Caesar's son.
A much stronger political statement.
So with Caesar gone, Cleopatra quickly understood she needed a new, powerful Roman ally. If she wanted to survive, really.
Yeah, the game reset completely.
This led directly to her alliance with Mark Antony. After Caesar's death, his three most powerful lieutenants, Octavian, Mark Antony, and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, formed the Second Triumvirate.
Carving up the Roman world between them.
And Cleopatra strategically aligned herself with Antony, who controlled the Roman East, her neighborhood, basically.
Made sense. In 41 BC, Antony summoned Cleopatra to Tarsos in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey.
And she made quite an entrance, didn't she? Not in a carpet this time.
No, this was pure spectacle. Sailing there on her opulent royal barge, the Thalamagos, hosting these lavish banquets, she totally captivated him, by all accounts.
And she masterfully cleared her name from accusations of supporting Caesar's assassins. Argued she had actually tried to aid their opponents.
Very clever maneuvering. And, showing her ruthless pragmatism again, she persuaded Antony to execute her exiled sister, Arsinoe IV.
The one who'd have been paraded in Rome. Wow, taking out a potential rival.
She clearly knew how to play the diplomatic and political game very effectively.
Cleopatra then invited Antony to Egypt, and by November 41 BC, he joined her in Alexandria for the winter.
And their affair deepened. This resulted in 3 children, the twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Cecilian II, born in 40 BC.
Sun and moon.
Right, and then Ptolemy Philadelphus in 36 BC. It seems pretty clear Cleopatra chose Antony not just for passion, though maybe that was there too.
But because of his immense power.
Exactly. Strategically aiming to secure her dynasty and maybe restore some of Egypt's former glory. It was a power move.
And Antony, he became increasingly reliant on Cleopatra, right, for both crucial funding.
Money, lots of it. Egypt was rich.
And vital military support, especially for his ambitious and ultimately disastrous Parthian campaigns.
Yeah, those campaigns cost a fortune. And this reliance led to what became famously, or infamously, known as the Donations of Alexandria.
Right. This is where Antony starts giving away huge chunks of territory.
Yeah, he significantly enlarged her kingdom on paper, granting her vast former Ptolemaic territories in the Levant, most of Phoenicia, Syria, even the fertile region around Jericho, though that was leased to Herod.
He even gave her parts of the Nabatean kingdom, Cyrene in North Africa, and Roman Crete.
I mean, this wasn't just a minor land transfer. Antony was fundamentally redrawing the map of the Roman East. He was elevating Cleopatra to a co-ruler in all but name.
Directly challenging Roman political norms.
And Octavian's vision for the Republic.
Absolutely.
Cleopatra, for her part, she even started double-dating her coinage in 36 BC, symbolizing, the inauguration of a new era for her kingdom.
This monumental shift of power wasn't just on paper, was it? Antony soon made a very public and very controversial statement about it.
Oh, yeah. In 34 BC, he held what amounted to a Roman triumph, but in Alexandria.
Not Rome, Alexandria.
Dressed as the god Dionysus, no less, he presented captured Armenian royalty to Cleopatra, who was seated on a golden throne up on a silver dais.
Like a goddess herself?
And she was dressed as Isis. She then declared herself Queen of Kings and Caesarian King of Kings.
Wow.
Their other children were also declared rulers of vast, though mostly unconquered territories. This whole event, the donations of Alexandria, was heavily criticized back in Rome as just a brazen perversion of cherished Roman traditions, a mockery of a triumph.
You can imagine the reaction, and this is where Octavian, Antony's rival, really seized the moment, didn't he?
Yeah.
For propaganda.
Oh, he was brilliant at it. He shrewdly portrayed Antony as totally neglecting his virtuous Roman wife, Octavia, who happened to be Octavian's sister. Very. And accused him of treasonous acts, like unlawfully detaining the Armenian king, marrying Cleopatra despite his existing Roman marriage.
Which wasn't legally recognized in Rome anyway?
Right. And wrongfully claiming Caesarion as Caesar's legitimate heir, undermining Octavian's own position as Caesar's adopted son and heir.
And Cleopatra herself. She got the worst of it in the propaganda war.
Absolutely hammered, depicted as this dangerous foreign queen, a seductress using witchcraft and sorcery, as destructive as Homer's Helen of Troy, you know, the woman who caused the Trojan War.
The ultimate foreign threat corrupting a noble Roman.
Exactly. There's even that wild, almost certainly fabricated claim from Pliny the Elder about her dissolving a priceless pearl in vinegar just to win a dinner party bet.
Designed to highlight her supposed foreign decadence and wastefulness.
Totally propaganda. It reached a fever pitch. In 32 BC, Antony finally formally divorced Octavia.
Burning that bridge completely.
And Octavian then took a decisive, really shocking step.
Yeah.
He seized Antony's will from the Vestal Virgins in Rome, sacred ground,
Unprecedented.
and publicized its contents. It allegedly named Caesarion as Caesar's true heir, confirmed the legality of the donations, and stated Antony's wish to be buried in Egypt with Cleopatra.
Not in Rome.
And even proposed Alexandria as the new capital of the Roman Republic. Whether the will was genuine or doctored by Octavian, it served its purpose.
It gave Octavian his casus belli.
His justification for war, exactly. Rome officially declared war, but cleverly on Cleopatra, not on Antony.
To avoid the appearance of another Roman civil war against a fellow citizen, Antony was just under her spell.
That was the narrative. Very shrewd politics.
Which brings us to the massive, decisive clash. The Battle of Actium in 31 BC.
The beginning of the end. Antony and Cleopatra commanded a larger fleet on paper.
But quality issues.
Yeah, many of their crews were hastily recruited, poorly trained. Cleopatra, with Egypt's defense likely her top priority, seems to have urged a naval confrontation, maybe hoping to break Octavian's blockade.
So at the battle on September 231 BC, Cleopatra was commanding her own squadron, about 60 ships, at the rear of the fleet.
And at a critical moment, she used her ship's sails. They were perhaps uniquely equipped for sailing, not just rowing to withdraw from the battle, heading towards the Peloponnese.
Trying to escape the trap.
Possibly. Trying to preserve her fleet, her most valuable asset for defending Egypt. But then Antony, seeing her leave, followed her with his own ship.
Abandoning his fleet.
That's how Roman writers, fueled by Octavian's narrative, portrayed it. Cowardly desertion by her, Antony bewitched and abandoning his men.
But there are other interpretations.
Yeah, some modern historians debate this, suggesting it might have been a pre-planned tactical withdrawal, an attempt to salvage their forces and escape the blockade to regroup in Egypt. We can't know for sure.
Regardless of the intent, the battle continued without them.
And it turned into a disaster for Antony's remaining forces. Massive defections to Octavian's side. Actium was the decisive blow.
The turning point, absolutely. Yeah. Antony and Cleopatra managed to land at Paratonion in Egypt. Then they separated for a time. Cleopatra raced back to Alexandria.
Desperately trying to spin Actium as some kind of victory, right? To prevent rebellion among her own people.
A truly desperate gamble to maintain control, maybe hope for another chance.
But it was slipping away. Shortly after, Antony received false news we don't know from who that Cleopatra had committed suicide.
Oh no.
In a fit of utter despair, believing she was gone, he plunged his sword into himself.
But he didn't die instantly.
No. His agony wasn't over. Still dying, he was carried to Cleopatra's tomb where she had barricaded herself. And there, in a final heartbreaking embrace, he died in her arms.
Just a tragic, dramatic end to their whole alliance. Shakespearean, really.
Absolutely. Octavian's forces were closing in. His companion, Gaius Proculius, then famously managed to infiltrate Cleopatra's tomb.
How?
Details are murky, maybe through a window. But he detained her, preventing her from burning herself, along with her vast royal treasures, which Octavian wanted.
When she finally met Octavian, she famously declared, according to the sources, "I will not be led in a triumph."
Showing that fierce determination right to the end. She knew what awaited defeated enemies in Rome.
To avoid that ultimate humiliation, being publicly paraded in chains through the streets of Rome, just like her own sister Arsinoe IV had been years earlier.
She meticulously planned her suicide. She died on August 12, 30 BC, at the age of 39. Her loyal servants, Eris and Charmian, also chose to die with her.
Such loyalty. And the cause of death? The famous asp?
That's the popular belief, the story that's stuck. An asp, or maybe an Egyptian cobra hidden in a basket of figs.
But other accounts existed even back then.
Yeah, other contemporary accounts suggested she might have used a sharp implement, like a hairpin, to scratch herself and introduce a toxin, or maybe injected poison with a needle, or even used a potent poisonous ointment.
Interesting. And the snake itself?
No snake was actually found with her body, apparently. But tiny puncture wounds were noted on her arm, so it remains a bit of a mystery. The asp story is just more dramatic, perhaps.
And Octavian's reaction.
Despite his anger at her defiance, denying him his prize for the triumph, he ordered Cleopatra to be buried royally next to Antony in her tomb.
Though the exact location of that tomb remains one of history's great unsolved mysteries.
Still looking for it today.
And what about Caesarion, her son with Julius Caesar?
The potential rival Caesar. Cleopatra had sent him, technically Ptolemy XV now, away to Upper Egypt, maybe hoping he could flee south to Kushite Nubia or even somehow make it to India.
A desperate hope.
But he was lured back to Alexandria under false pretenses of safety and was executed on Octavian's direct orders on August 29, 30 BC.
And that was reportedly on the chilling advice of the philosopher Aristodemus.
Yeah. It is not good to have too many Caesars. A brutal political calculation.
The fall of the Ptolemaic Kingdom, the last of the great Hellenistic successor states, and the establishment of the Roman province of Egypt.
Which was unique, placed under Octavian's direct personal control, not the Senate's.
Right. That marked the definitive end of the Hellenistic period. And just a few years later, in 27 BC, Octavian became Augustus, the first Roman emperor, ushering in the Pax Romana.
A whole new era for the entire Mediterranean world, built partly on the ruins of Cleopatra's kingdom.
So let's pivot to her legacy. What does this all mean? Beyond the romance and the drama, our sources consistently confirm she was a profoundly active and capable ruler, wasn't she?
Oh, definitely. Not just a figurehead. She served as the sole lawgiver in Egypt, the chief religious authority carefully overseeing ceremonies for both Egyptian and Greek gods, showing that cultural bridging again.
She was directly involved in administrative affairs, even managing that earlier famine crisis by distributing food from the royal granaries. She attempted things like price controls, state monopolies.
Signs of a hands-on monarch dealing with real economic problems. She even had to debase her coinage because the kingdom was in such chronic financial trouble.
Her reign was absolutely far more than just a love story, then.
Much more. As for the fates of her 3 surviving children with Antony, Cleopatra, Selene II, Alexander Helios, and Ptolemy Philadelphus.
What happened to them?
They were taken to Rome. Octavian actually had his sister, Octavia, Antony's wronged wife, raise them.
Wow, imagine that.
Yeah. Selene II and Helios were even paraded as children, a grim reminder of their parents' defeat in Octavian's triumph.
Awful. And the boy.
The fates of Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philadelphus after that. Sadly unknown. They just disappear from the historical record.
But Cleopatra Selene II survived.
Yes, she did. She went on to marry Juba II, who was the Roman-appointed king of Mauritania in North Africa. And by all accounts, she played a significant role there, establishing Hellenistic Greek culture in their court.
So a part of Cleopatra's legacy lived on through her daughter.
Right, and her son, Ptolemy of Mauritania, became the last known monarch of the Ptolemaic dynasty, though ruling a different kingdom. He was eventually executed by their Roman Emperor Caligula in 40 AD.
The dynasty finally extinguished. Now, thinking about how Cleopatra herself was recorded, it's striking how most Roman accounts were so intensely critical, right? Like largely negative portrayals.
Overwhelmingly so, especially from the Augustan period, at the time of Octavian Augustus. It was political necessity for them. Plutarch's Life of Antonius, written maybe a century after her death but drawing on earlier, primary sources possibly closer to her court. That offers the most thorough and maybe a slightly more nuanced view than the pure Augustan propaganda.
Still Roman, still biased, but maybe better.
Arguably. Josephus, the Jewish historian, his work is valuable too, but it seems quite biased by the memoirs of Herod the Great, who was often at odds with Cleopatra.
And Cicero, the orator, who actually met her in Rome.
Famously found her arrogant, hated her, basically.
Later Roman authors, like the poets Virgil and Horace, while still often negative, sometimes did add elements of romance, or even, surprisingly, positive interpretations of her suicide, maybe acknowledging her defiance, her queenly pride.
Yeah, a sort of grudging respect creeps in sometimes later on. But the negative image was powerful.
Which makes you wonder, how much did her gender influence this portrayal?
That's a huge question, isn't it? While she's often painted as this prolific seductress, the historical reality seems to be she only had two known partners, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony.
Who just happened to be the two most powerful Romans of her time.
Exactly. Not exactly random affairs. Sources strongly suggest her charm, her wit, her intellect, those were more captivating than just physical beauty. And her relationship choices seem consistently driven by a desperate, shrewd need to ensure her dynasty's survival against Rome's relentless expansion.
That really reframes the seductress narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It puts politics and survival front and center.
it has to. Now, on the topic of her appearance and background, there's been a lot of recent discussion about her ancestry and ethnicity. What do the sources say?
Well, she belonged to the Macedonian Greek Ptolemaic dynasty. We know that for sure. There was some Persian ancestry further back through Cleopatra VII.
But generally, it's believed the Ptolemies did not intermarry with native Egyptians, at least not the ruling line.
Right, so most scholars concur she was primarily of Greek Macedonian descent, maybe with some Persian or Syrian elements, but likely not Black African as sometimes portrayed in modern media.
Yeah, the debate about her ethnicity and skin color continues today, particularly in popular culture and discussions around representation, even though Roman propaganda itself never accused her of being illegitimate or non-Ptolemaic. They attacked her morals, her foreignness, but not her lineage usually.
Though Strabo, the geographer, was the only ancient historian to claim Ptolemy XII's younger children, including Cleopatra, were illegitimate. But that wasn't the main line of attack.
No, the historical consensus definitely leans towards her Hellenistic European Near Eastern roots. However, the exact identity of her mother isn't definitively known, which does leave, some room for speculation, especially in popular culture where the image is more fluid.
And what about the ancient art, the statues, busts, coins? What do they tell us?
It's a mixed bag, showing different facets of how she was perceived or how she wanted to be perceived. We mentioned Caesar's incredible gilded bronze statue of her in his Temple of Venus Genetrix.
Unprecedented honor.
Yeah, the first time a living person's statue was placed next to a deity in a Roman temple, a huge statement. Then you have accepted portrait busts, like the ones known as the Berlin Cleopatra and Vatican Cleopatra.
What do they look like?
They show her with a royal diadem, wavy hair, and a rather distinct, somewhat hooked nose. Not necessarily the Elizabeth Taylor image.
Right. And her coins.
Her coinage is fascinating. It often depicted her with facial features quite similar to Antony's.
Why?
It was a common convention for Hellenistic royal couples, symbolizing harmony and joint rule. Some coins even show her with a more masculine, strong-jawed look, almost Romanized, perhaps an attempt to project strength and appear as a legitimate successor in a male-dominated world.
Interesting. And she even started a fashion trend.
Yeah, the melon hairstyle she popularized, hair parted centrally and braided back into a bun, actually became fashionable among women in Rome for a time.
And then there's the native Egyptian art.
Completely different style. Those reliefs and statues depict her in the traditional, highly stylized pharaonic manner, often shown making offerings to Egyptian gods, sometimes alongside her son Caesarion, honoring her role as a legitimate pharaoh of Egypt for that audience.
So these varied depictions are really crucial, aren't they? They show how strategically she presented herself to different groups.
Absolutely. Balancing her Greek heritage, Egyptian religious duties, and even Roman political messaging, all designed to secure her position and legitimacy. A masterclass in political image management.
And finally, let's touch on her modern cultural impact. It's undeniable, isn't it? Even millennia later.
Oh, huge. Cleopatra remains this enduring pop culture icon. Her image has been largely shaped, maybe even distorted, by centuries of retelling, Renaissance and early modern theater.
Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, obviously.
The big one. Countless paintings, usually emphasizing the seduction and tragedy, and of course, Hollywood movies.
Camilla, Claudette Colbert.
And most famously, Elizabeth Taylor in that epic 1963 film. That image is burned into many people's minds.
And these portrayals often lean into the sensual, mystic, sometimes even vampiric queen stereotype.
Yeah, she becomes this symbol of the exotic, dangerous, alluring East. It's fascinating how her image was even used to market, like soap and biscuits in Victorian Britain.
Wow. Shows how deeply she permeated the global public consciousness, evolving with each era's own fascinations and anxieties.
Absolutely.
So pulling this all together, what does it all mean? Our deep dive today, I think, reveals a Cleopatra far more intricate than that simplistic seductress trope allows for.
Absolutely. She was a highly intelligent, politically astute monarch, a multilingual master of diplomacy, a fiercely protective mother fighting for her lineage.
And a ruler who, despite her Hellenistic Greek background, seemed to embrace Egyptian culture and religion more profoundly than any other Ptolemy before her.
Yeah, her story isn't just one of romance, though that's part of it. It's fundamentally about ambition, about survival, and about a desperate and ultimately losing fight to preserve her kingdom and her dynasty in the shadow of the unstoppable Roman Republic, soon to be empire.
Her legacy, then, is maybe a powerful testament to the influence of narrative itself.
How history gets shaped not just by, the bare facts, but by who records them and why, and how one individual can become this canvas for centuries of projection, propaganda, fascination, and reinterpretation.
So maybe a final thought for you, our listener. As you reflect on Cleopatra's life, consider this. How much of the history we absorb about powerful figures, especially perhaps powerful women from the past, is truly fact? And how much is a reflection of the fears, the desires, the biases of the ages that retell their stories?
Yeah, what might we still learn about ourselves, about how we construct history through her enduring, incredibly complex tale? It's something worth thinking about.